I'm Catherine. Standing in this courtroom, I'm surrounded by an eerie silence. My mother, who was just a moment ago putting on a show of grief, has now gone deathly still. The words of Dr. Amelia Reed, a respected geriatric psychiatrist, have just shattered her case into pieces. Mrs. Thompson was fully oriented. She scored in the normal range across every measure. She showed no sign of dementia, delusion, or impaired reasoning. She understood her estate, her family, and her decision completely, Dr. Reed stated calmly. I remember the first time I saw my mother in this courtroom, sitting at the petitioner's table in a sleek black suit. She looked every bit the grieving daughter, but I knew better. It had been 18 long months since my grandmother, Eleanor Thompson, passed away, leaving me her magnificent mansion in the countryside, worth $7,500,000. My mother, Victoria, couldn't accept it. She called it theft, and she'd been repeating the same line for months. She didn't know what she was doing. It all started on a rainy Wednesday in November when we buried Grandma. The funeral was more like a business meeting. My family showed up in expensive coats, their eyes calculating the value of Grandma's estate. I, on the other hand, had spent the last 3 years of her life by her side. I'd finish my 12-hour shift at the local hospital, where I worked as a nurse, and drive straight to her house. I'd refill her pill organizer, read her the newspaper, and fix the old fireplace when it went out. My mother, Victoria, was always more interested in the money than in Grandma's well-being. She'd call and ask about the accounts, the appraised value of the house, but never once asked how Grandma was feeling. One night, after a particularly long week, I sat on the edge of Grandma's bed and asked her why she trusted me with everything when she had 2 daughters. Blood doesn't make family, Catherine, she said, looking at me with those wise eyes. Showing up does. I thought it was just a kind thing to say to a tired girl, but little did I know, she'd already put those words into a legal document. 10 days after Grandma's passing, we gathered in a stuffy office to hear the reading of the will. The lawyer, Mr. Henry Clark, was a serious man with a monotone voice. My mother sat in the front row, her back straight and her eyes fixed on the lawyer. My stepfather, David, sat beside her with his arms crossed, and my aunt, Sarah, and half-brother, Ryan, were also there. When Mr. Clark read my name as the heir to the house and the rest of the estate, the room went cold. My mother stood up so fast that her chair fell back. "This is wrong," she shouted. She didn't know what she was doing. My mother would never leave a stranger her house over her own daughters. Aunt Sarah's voice was cold as ice. "You were never family to her. You were just the nurse." I took a deep breath and held my tongue. Mr. Clark tried to calm my mother down, saying that the will was properly executed and witnessed, but she wouldn't listen. She was determined to take this to court. The next day, I received a text from David. It was a polite threat, saying that nobody wanted an ugly fight and that if I signed over the bulk of the estate, the family wouldn't have to drag my name through the mud. I texted back that the will was Grandma's choice, and I wouldn't be signing anything. Over the next few weeks, the rumors started to spread. People in town started calling me a gold digger. My mother had posted on social media, saying that some people prey on the elderly and call it caregiving. I ignored her posts. I knew that if I responded, it's exactly what she wanted. I decided to fight back. I hired a probate attorney, Miss Lily Brown. She was tough and straight-talking. She told me that a will contest comes down to 2 things. Did my grandmother have the capacity to make the will, and did anyone unduly influence her? My mother would argue both. Ms. Brown also told me that my testimony wouldn't be enough. We needed an independent witness, someone who saw Grandma around the time she signed the will. I racked my brain, but I couldn't remember anyone. As the discovery process dragged on, my mother's side started building a picture of a confused old woman. They found little things, like the time Grandma called Ryan by his father's name at Christmas, and a pharmacy note about a changed prescription. They tried to use these things to cast doubt on Grandma's mental state. Then, during my deposition, my mother's attorney, Mr. Peter Green, tried to turn my devotion into a motive. He asked me how often I visited, if I handled Grandma's medications, and if I'd ever discussed the will with her. By the end of the deposition, I realized that they didn't need to prove I'd done anything wrong. They just needed to make the judge doubt Grandma's mind. The betrayal came from Ryan. He was 25 years old, 5 years younger than me. I'd always covered for him. I'd paid his rent when he lost his job and lied to our mother about a car accident so he wouldn't lose his driving privileges. But when I found out that his name was on a sworn statement for my mother's side, saying that Grandma seemed disoriented and that I was controlling, I was heartbroken. He texted me, saying he was sorry and that he was drowning. They'd promised to help him with his debts if he just told them what they wanted to hear. I asked him to withdraw the statement, but he never replied. One Sunday, I finally opened a box that had been sitting on my doorstep for weeks. It was full of Grandma's personal things. As I went through the papers, I found a bank statement from about 6 years ago. There was a red circled line showing that $42,000 had left her main account in a single transfer. A few months later, part of it had come back, with a note in the margin, V. My mother's name is Victoria. I knew Grandma didn't keep papers for no reason. She must have wanted me to find this. I called Miss Brown and told her about it. She told me to save everything and not to tell anyone. We lost the preliminary hearing. The judge decided that there was enough doubt about Grandma's capacity to warrant a full trial. My mother was overjoyed. She didn't need to win the case. She just needed to make it so painful for me that I'd give up. The local newspaper ran an article about the family dispute. Everyone in town knew about it. My landlord gave me strange looks, and some of my patients' families treated me differently. I felt like a question mark in my own town. Ms. Brown told me that we needed to find the person who was with Grandma when she signed the will. I remembered that Mr. Clark had said Grandma brought someone with her, a doctor. I went to see him, and he told me that Grandma had insisted on a capacity test before signing the will. She'd brought a doctor, but he couldn't remember her name. That night, I sat on my living room floor and went through Grandma's things again. Under a stack of old books, I found a small leather planner. It was worn and soft from years of use. I opened it and turned to the year Grandma signed the will. There, on a page for a Friday in May, was an entry, Dr. Amelia Reed, 10 o'clock, capacity test before I sign. Tell her the truth about Victoria and the money. Clipped to the page was a business card. Dr. Amelia Reed, Geriatric Psychiatry. I couldn't believe my eyes. Grandma had planned this all along. She knew what my mother would do. Finding Dr. Reed was like searching for a needle in a haystack. She'd retired and moved to another state. I spent my days off and lunch breaks calling hospitals, professional societies, and anyone who might know her. Finally, I found her number in a small town in Florida. When I called her, she answered as if she'd been expecting my call. She remembered Grandma well. She said that Grandma had come in for a formal capacity assessment. She was alert, oriented, and knew exactly what she wanted to do. Grandma had told Dr. Reed that she was leaving the house to me because I was the only one who showed up. She also told her about the $42,000 that Victoria had taken from her account without permission and that she might challenge the will. Dr. Reed said that she still had the file, but it was in storage and it would take a subpoena to get it. She was also hesitant about flying back to testify. I told her the whole story, about the 18 months of fighting, the lies, and the betrayal. I told her that my mother was using the lie that Grandma lost her mind, and it was the cruelest insult to a woman who had fought so hard to prove her sanity. After a long pause, she said, "Send me your lawyer's number." Ms. Brown moved quickly. She prepared a subpoena for the records and arranged for Dr. Reed to testify in person. 3 weeks before the trial, my mother offered to settle. She said I could keep 20% of the estate if I signed a statement saying there was a misunderstanding about Grandma's wishes and apologized to the family. I thought about it for one night. I thought about Grandma booking that doctor 3 years ago, acing the test, and saying, "Now let them try." I told Miss Brown that we were going to trial. During the discovery process, we found a sealed letter that Grandma had written to my mother. In it, she forgave my mother for taking the money. She said that she knew Victoria was still her daughter and hoped that one day she'd understand that love wasn't about money. My mother had read that letter and still decided to go to war. It changed the way I saw her. I realized that she was more than just cruel. She was willing to sacrifice family for money. A week before the trial, Miss Brown laid out our case. We had the planner entry, the bank statement, Mr. Clark's testimony, and Dr. Reed's notes. We could have used the theft to threaten criminal referral, but I decided not to. I wanted to let the truth speak for itself. The night before the trial, I sat at my kitchen table with Grandma's leather planner and a cup of cold tea. I read the entry one more time. Tell her the truth about Victoria and the money. Ryan texted me, saying not to read it in court because it would destroy Mom. I wrote back, "I'm not the one destroying anything, Ryan. I'm just the one who stopped hiding it." The next morning, I walked into the courtroom calm. My mother's lawyer presented his case, painting Grandma as a confused old woman and me as a manipulator. When he called my mother to the stand, she played her part well, saying that Grandma was not herself at the end. Then, it was our turn. Ms. Brown called Dr. Reed to the stand. When Dr. Reed walked in, my mother's face went pale. Dr. Reed testified about Grandma's capacity test, her sound mind, and the reasons for leaving the house to me. When she read the part about the $42,000 in Victoria's theft, the room went silent. My mother stood up, shouting and denying everything. But it was too late. Her lawyer knew that the game was over. My mother finally said, "Drop the case." Her lawyer withdrew the petition, and the judge confirmed that Grandma's will was valid. As I walked out of the courtroom, I felt a strange sense of relief. I was tired, but I was also free. People expected me to report my mother to the police, but I didn't. I chose to follow Grandma's example and let mercy prevail. I kept the house in the countryside. I decided to turn part of it into a retreat for tired caregivers, the people who show up when no one else does. I cut off contact with my mother, David, and Sarah. I left a small opening for Ryan, hoping that one day he'd become a better person. In the end, I learned that family isn't about blood. It's about the people who choose to stand by you, the ones who show up when it matters most. Grandma armed me with the truth, and I'm proud to have stood my ground.